All right. So want to share with y'all real quick for the time we have, a little bit about what the way I see how we can, one path to find meaning in Judaism. And I want to do a little bit of a background on where we have been in the previous talks, okay? In the previous talks, we began a conversation about spirituality, and we talked about how the first step is to take a step back from ourselves, to free ourselves from ourselves. That a lot of times society will tell us that freedom means that I'm free to do whatever I feel like doing whenever I feel like doing it. But as we discussed here, there's a level of truth to that, but also if you're always just doing whatever you feel like doing, whenever you feel like doing it, so you're just following whatever whim, whatever instinct, whatever emotional impulse comes to you at that particular time, and there's a certain slavery, a certain servitude in that, right? So we moved on from there, and we talked about how freedom is this idea of kind of being able to extract yourself from yourself in order to go ahead and make a choice from a place of consciousness. We talked about how these are the kind of people that we respect in life. And then we went on in the later class to ask, all right, so if it, the beginning stages of consciousness, of spirituality, is to be able to be free from these things that are pulling us in one direction or another, what happened when I go ahead and become free from all of these things? The next question is, what am I going to be free for? And so we discussed a little bit about what we're searching for, the concept of moving forward, of actualizing potential, and all these wonderful topics, okay? So I want to take that to the next step and say, right, because last week also we spoke about different influences of the culture and how it could take us away from our purpose. But we really didn't get into what is our purpose, right? What are we really here for? What is that search? What is that potential that we're looking to actualize? And so I think if we want to discuss this, we have to get into a little bit the bigger picture of kind of what is kind of the deeper spiritual take on Judaism. And so I think the conversation begins, if you want to talk about anything having to do with Judaism, Jewish philosophy, Kabbalah, Hasidut, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, I think the conversation begins with your average Joe walking down the street, right? Your average Joe walking down the street. And so if you have your average Joe walking down the street, so imagine you see sitting right there in middle of the street, a table, right? So if you were to ask average Joe, where does that table come from? What are some possible answers or suggestions average Joe might give you, right? He might say, oh, it fell off the back of a truck. It's from a tree. It's made out of wood, maybe. It came from China, IKEA. Okay, all sorts of possibilities where that table came from. But what average Joe is not going to say, he's not going to say, oh, that table just popped out of nowhere. No, average Joe is not going to say that, because a table is something that is in the finite, and meaning it's something that's in time and space. And we can know two things about anything in the finite, two things about anything in time and space, right? Number one, from nothing, nothing comes. And number two, nothing finite can create itself, right? The table cannot pop out of nowhere, and the table cannot bring itself into existence, right? Let's take something else that is finite for now. Let's take you. Since she's the only one I see right now, Rebecca. Ready, Rebecca? Here we go. Rebecca, are you in the finite? Are you in time and space at this particular moment? Oh, she's very spiritual, saying no. Okay, let's qualify the question a little bit. The physical side of you that we are perceiving, that we are looking at right now, is that in the finite? Yes, okay. So that means already I can know two things about Rebecca, or at least the physical side of Rebecca, right? We can know two things about it. Number one, from nothing, nothing comes. And number two, nothing finite can create itself, right? Rebecca did not pop out of nowhere. Rebecca did not bring herself into existence, which means there is no logical alternative other than the idea that Rebecca had to come from somewhere. So I'm going to suggest Rebecca had parents, right? Is that true? That she has or had parents? Yes? Yes. Right? Or she's creating a lab, she's a test. Okay, all sorts of different possible options. For now, Rebecca, parents, yes. Okay? But parents also in the finite. The parents are also in time and space, which means I can know two things about them. I can know, number one, from nothing, nothing comes. Number two, nothing finite can create itself. So it's not a matter of faith or belief, but I can know just by looking at Rebecca that she has or had grandparents. Yeah? Grandparents, right? Okay, so let's say you take this all the way back, right, to the first person, or if you want to include evolution for now, the first ape-like being, the first amoeba, the first cell, the first gas, the first finite thing so small, you need a super duper microscope in order to see it. And if we were to ask about that thing, where does it come from, right? So the idea is like this, that we can know that there can be no other, right? There can be no other logical alternative other than the idea that there's something that's outside those laws of the finite, something that's outside those laws of time and space, which created time and space and that which is in it, right? And this is what we mean, of course, by, this is what we call, simple English, the infinite, because let's be clear about what we're saying. We're saying nothing more than what it's not. Infinite, that which is not finite, that which is beyond the limitations of time and space, right? And of course, in Judaism, we have a word for this. We call this God, right? G to the dash to the D. So next question, though, is, and by the way, just for clarity's sake, we'll use those words interchangeably, right? In the word infinite, God, okay? We can use both of those words. And so next question, though, is, all right, so you got this infinite being. Next question is, who cares? So what? What difference does that make to me? And bigger question maybe even was, why on earth would you put me here, right? Like, what can you possibly do for the infinite being? Put it to you guys. What can you possibly do for the infinite being? Okay, I knew you'd come through. That is the correct answer. There is nothing you can possibly do that will make a change in the essence of the infinite, right? If you pray to God, is God now infinite plus one? No, right? That's just infinite. So next question is, all right, if there's nothing that God's gonna get out of the deal, of course, next question for us to say is, there's nothing God's gonna get out of the deal. Next question is, what can I get out of the deal? Well, let's see. What is it that people want? What is it that people are after? What is it that is at the core of all of the choices that we make? I put this question to you, my friends. What is at the core, the gut core, this of the decisions that we make? Feel free to put something in the chat if you have any thoughts. All right. So here are some things that people typically say, right? People typically say, okay, people do what they do for money. People do what they do for love, right? All sorts of options that people will say. But also usually there'll be someone who will suggest happiness, that we make the choice that we make for happiness. And the truth is, I believe that that is the umbrella organization, meaning all the other things are true as well. Yes, people can make choices based on money or whatever. But can you hear the idea that people are making the choice for money? It's really not about the money. It's about, they think that if I have a certain amount of money, I'm going to be able to go ahead and do something with that money that will bring me happiness, right? So really, there's all sorts of different levels to this. But in the end of the day, the overarching theme is that everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, right? And so a good way to see this very clearly is if you imagine someone is walking down the street and he finds, actually, let's take a couple of you guys and have a good time with it. let's see. Juan, are you there? You ready to play a little game with us or no? He's got his camera off, so maybe I shouldn't be picking on him. All right, we'll let him go. Fine. So we're going to play with Rivka. You ready to play? There we go. Give me a thumbs up. Right? Okay, there you go. You can unmute yourself. Awesome. Okay, Rivka is walking down the street. What do you know? It's a lucky day. She finds a wallet. She picks it up, cracks it open, looks inside. Whoa, $500. Okay, Rivka, what do? Dilemma. Oh, you find $500, but in there, sorry, I forgot to add, contact information. Yes, email, cell phone, the whole bit. So, Rivka, what do? Do you keep that money or do you give it back?
Definitely give it back.
Right.
Try to contact the person.
Good. Okay, Rivka gives back the money. Now we're going to move on to Rebecca. You ready? Rebecca, you in?
Okay, I'm in.
Perfect. Thanks for playing. So now Rebecca's walking down the street. What do you know? It's a lucky day. She finds a wallet. She picks it up, cracks it open, looks inside. Whoa, $500. But check out the other side, Rebecca. Contact information, email, cell phone. Rebecca, what do? Do you keep that money or do you give it back?
You're obligated to find the person.
Now, hold on. I asked, what do you do? I didn't say anything about check the texts of the Jewish sources here. What do, Rebecca? Do you keep that money or do you give it back? Say again?
Yeah. You have to give it
Okay,
back.
so Rebecca keeps the money. Okay, very good. So I need it for my example. So you were kind of forced into that one. So here we go. We got Rivka, we got Rebecca. Two people doing opposite things, making opposite choices. What I want to put forth to you is that really Rivka and Rebecca are doing opposite things, but really for the same basic, deeper reason, which is happiness, pleasure, joy, happiness.
Happiness,
right?
yes.
That exactly, that everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. So Rebecca, we understand, she says, look, I want to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, therefore I'm keeping that money. But Rivka, she gives back the money, but she too takes back the pleasure of being good, feeling good, doing those things that society has brainwashed me to believe to be good. And so I can feel the nice pat on my back from my society. And that makes me feel all nice and tingly inside. And so really we see that really everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. So the next question becomes, if I want to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, next question is, how do I do that? Right? And so then the question after that is, all right, well, hold on, let's see what's available. What's the most available? So we take a look around the world and we see that there's all sorts of pleasure, joy, happiness options out there. You got sex, drugs, rock and roll. But what do all those pleasures have in common?
Temporary.
Yes, they're all temporary. That's right. Even rock and roll dies, right? And so what comes out with that, they're all temporary. They're all in, to use another word, to borrow another word you've been using thus far, they're all in the finite. There you go. They're all in the finite. They're all limited within the realm of time and space. So the next question is, all right, okay, so all those pleasure, joy, happiness options are nice. They're cool. They're fun. Got no beef with them. But is there anything that goes beyond? Is there anything bigger? Is there anything that goes beyond those pleasure, joy, happiness options? Is there anything that goes beyond the finite? Perhaps something we've mentioned already.
The infinite.
Nailed it, Rebecca. Wow, I should be paying you. So there you go, the infinite. So this is the Jewish idea, right? The Jewish idea is, look, everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. And it doesn't take that long, if we want to be real about it and think in a deep way, to realize that everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. The most is going to be to build and facilitate a relationship, association, affiliation, connection with the infinite. And so let's be clear what we're saying, though. We're not saying that, okay, I'm going to chuck the finite for the sake of the infinite. Okay, we're not going to say that. Rebecca, you got it? We're not saying I'm going to throw away the finite. It's all trash. It's all nothing. I'm just going to go after the infinite. That's not what we're saying. We're saying is everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, which means I want to get it all. I want the infinite and I want the finite. The only time I'm going to pass up on any kind of pleasure, joy, happiness out of life is if by my partaking in the lower finite, it will come in the way or block my access to the higher infinite. In that particular case, I will forgo the finite for the sake of it not blocking my access to the infinite. Do you hear that idea? Okay, and let's just be clear that the truth is that sounds very complicated and very wordy, but the truth is that like so many of our life choices are actually based in that calculation. Now, let me give you an example. Imagine you have a guy, big man on campus, with a different young lady every night in the dorms, right? And after a few years of this lifestyle, he decides, you know what, this physical pleasure I've been involved with up until now is fun and dandy, but I want to build a loving relationship with a particular young lady. And so can you hear the idea that in order for big man to build loving, committed relationship, that entails him a whole lot in forgoing a whole lot of the physical pleasure he's been involved with up until that point, right? If big man on campus would continue with big man on campus lifestyle, can you hear the idea that that is likely to undermine loving, committed relationship? Yes, fair to say? So fast forward 10 years down the road, we catch up with big man once again, but now he's happily married. Maybe he's got a wife, a couple of kids maybe, but we find him leaving his wife and kids temporarily on a tearful goodbye to go out and fight for a cause halfway around the world that he believes in. Maybe he's going to Africa to fight hunger or some disease or something. So can you hear the idea that in order for big men to pursue that higher, more meaningful pursuit, it entails him temporarily, at least, forgoing a certain level, that loving, committed relationship he's been involved with up until that point, right? Like if it's clear that if big man would continue with his 9-to-5 lifestyle, coming home every day, clearly that would undermine his opportunity to go halfway around the world in order to do something that he views to be as his calling and meaningful, right? And so we see that we're always making these kinds of choices. And so what Judaism says is, look, at the top of this list is always going to be to build and facilitate a relationship, association, affiliation with the infinite. And so then the next question is, if I want to go ahead and get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, and the most is to build and facilitate a relationship with the infinite, next question is, okay, rewind. If I want to build a relationship with the infinite, the next question is, say again?
How?
There you go. How? How do I do that? And so for this, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what something the Kabbalists teach us. Right? In order to understand a little, we're going to take a Kabbalistic approach. In order to understand that a little bit, we do need to understand one idea about Kabbalah. Now we'll give two ideas. Right? One, like what do we mean by Kabbalah in the first place? Kabbalah, of course, is the deeper side of deeper layer of understanding of Judaism and the world. Okay, and the word literally means, Kabbalah is literally from the word likabel, which means to receive, because we are receiving these deeper teachings are being received by the student from the teacher. Right? However, another idea about Kabbalah, another related idea about what Kabbalah means, is Kabbalah is related to the Hebrew word makbil, which means parallel, because one of the foundational principles of all Kabbalistic thought is that everything here in this physical world is a parallel to a deeper spiritual reality. And so therefore, if I want to understand something that's going on spiritually, a lot of times we are going to be able, the path to get there is going to be to understand how this physical world works with the proper wisdom in order to understand how it's a parallel to the spiritual reality. So for our purposes today, that means that if my question is, how do I build my relationship with the infinite? One way of getting to an understanding is if I understand how relationships in this world work, interpersonal relationships. If I can look with some wisdom at interpersonal relationships, hopefully I can pull out some principles about how those relationships work. And then I can take those principles and apply them to my relationship with the infinite, because the only reason why my relationships in this world work the way they work is because they are a parallel and projection of my relationship with the infinite. Do you hear that idea? Lie to me.
Not really. I'm trying.
I said lie. Okay, let's keep it simple. Let's keep it simple. Very simply, what we are going to do is, if we want to understand how to build a relationship with the infinite, let's look at something that's much more tangible for us. Relationships, interpersonal relationships. If we can understand how those work, we should be able to understand how relationships work by and large, and then we'll be able to see with those understandings, we'll be able to apply them to our relationship with the infinite and see what we some ways of understanding that we could come around with. Is that okay? Cool. Rebecca, I got a nod from Rivka, and I got yes. Rebecca who's going to play along for the sake of us moving forward, right, Rebecca?
Yeah.
Awesome, perfect. So
sure.
Good, awesome. So here goes. Ready? Okay. So principle number 1 of relationships for today is that in any relationship, the quality of a relationship depends on your ability to choose it. And choosing it means you have to have the ability to destroy it. Let me say that one more time. In any relationship, the quality of a relationship depends on your ability to choose it. And choosing it means you have to have the ability to truly destroy it. Now, if you don't understand what I just said there, that's cool. Hang with me for the next 5 minutes. We will come back to that phrase, and God willing, it will make perfect sense. Okay? So, for example, can you think of a relationship that you did not choose?
Your parent, well, your
parents was your gut. Let's go with your gut. It's easier. Yes, there's other things, family. Okay, there's other things. Like, let's go with the parents. It makes the point in the clearest way. Okay? So this is exactly why, in a healthy situation, the parents are going to love the kids more than the kids love the parents. Now, this is crazy, though, because if you think about it, the parents are constantly giving to that kid, right? And yet, you're going to tell me that at the end of that, it's going to be the parents that love the kids more than the kids love the parents. Parents giving everything, kids getting everything. The parents giving, the kids giving, the kids not giving consciously. And you're gonna tell me that the parents are going to be the ones that love the kids more than the kids love the parents. The kids are gaining like crazy. They keep receiving stuff, right? So of course, the answer that anyone who's been to a Jewish class before has heard is that we know that the way that we build love is with giving of self. Giving doesn't just mean, by the way, give $1 to the guy in the street. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is real giving of self. To the extent we clarify, to the extent we go ahead and give of ourselves towards another, so then we extend of ourselves towards another, and then what do you know? We come to love that other like we love ourselves, right? So let's see how this plays out, right? So imagine you have this kid, right? Imagine you have this kid, and let's see. Anyone want to volunteer to play? Let's see. We had Rebecca already. We had Rivka. Anyone else want to volunteer? We got a bunch of mutes over here. All right, fine. So, let's see. Since I know Rebecca, so we'll just bother her again. Rebecca, you ready to play?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So here's the crazy thing, right? Now, Rebecca, you ready? do you want someday to get married?
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. So here's the crazy thing, right? Because growing up, your parents feed you?
Yes.
Yes. Clothe you?
Yeah.
Make you pay rent? Put a roof over? No, let's say it like this: put a roof over your head. Better way.
Baruch
Yes.
Hashem.
Okay. Baruch Hashem. Did you ever do anything to upset these people?
All the time.
Awesome. Ever make anyone cry?
Or like what?
Ever make anyone cry?
Probably.
Perfect. So now here's the crazy. Afterwards, did they still feed you?
Yes. One time I crashed my dad's car and he brought me oranges and tea to make me feel better. And
Wow. That is not what happened when I crashed my dad's car, but okay. It's a story for another day. But anyway, so
But like
good.
that
You're after.
teaches you about Hashem.
Huh?
But it teaches you about Hashem. Like you mess up
Yeah.
and then we expect him to make it better and he makes it better.
Yes, yes. I'm glad your father taught you about Hashem. That's awesome. Okay, so anyway, afterwards they still feed you, they still clothe you, and they still put the roof over your head, even after you upset them. Now, a minute ago, you just told me that you want to leave these people as the primary relationship in your life and go to some guy where if you say to him what you said to your mother, you're going to be in a hell of a lot of trouble. Isn't that true?
Right.
Obvious question here. Why would an intelligent person such as yourself do something as seemingly idiotic as this?
You tell me.
Good. Glad we're on the same page. That was the plan. But, I wanted to hear what you had to say. But okay, we can just skip right to me. That's fine. So here, let's try to figure it out, though, right? Like if we can leave the obvious, physical stuff aside, and also societal norms of getting together as a couple or marriage or whatever aside, just relationship wise, lovey-dovey wise, emotional wise, why is it that we make this move? Or why is it that many of us have a desire to make this move? Just emotionally.
You want to build kesher. You can only build so much kesher with your parents.
What do you mean with your parents? Look, tell me something. Do you want a, what do you call it? I'm forgetting the word. Do you want a relationship that is unconditional? Do you want unconditional love or no?
Yes, but it's impossible for.
Uh-oh, we lost her. All right. I think we're losing Rebecca here. All right, so we're gonna have to go on because we're losing Rebecca. Rebecca, sign out, go out and come back in. So here's the deal, y'all. The deal is like this, that when we sorry, just trying to not get caught. Okay, when we go ahead and the idea is like this, that in our relationship with the parents, okay, the relationship, if everything is healthy, the relationship is so stable, it's almost like it's not even there, right? Rebecca does something good, she gets taken care of. She does something bad, she still gets taken care of. More or less. At some point, we grow up, we become more independent, we become more mature, and this relationship starts to make us a little bit sick. After all, where is the me in this relationship? Whatever I do, it doesn't really make a true change in the relationship. I do something good, I get taken care of. I do something bad, I still get taken care of, right? So at some point we grow up, we become more mature, we try and we transition away from this relationship as primary in my life to a relationship where if you do something good, the relationship gets amazing. But that's only because if you would do something bad, that relationship gets bad in a hurry, right? And that dynamic, when we leave from the inherent stability of our relationship with the parents to the inherent delicacy of the relationship with the, we'll call it the spouse, the guy-gal kind of relationship, right? When we go ahead and make the right choices in that situation, that's where we're moving to a higher, more refined, more mature, choice-based relationship. Now, meaning to say the relationship with the parents inherently is more stable. The relationship with the partner is more elevated, is more driven, is more inspiring, right? And so some people would like to, some people often ask, are you saying that we're leaving a relationship that's, like, I want a straight, people often say, I want a stable relationship, right? Have you ever said that, right? Have you ever said, I want a stable relationship with you, maybe to a guy, to a gal? I want to have a stable relationship with you. What is that? So when you say that to them, are you saying that you want a relationship with them like you have with your parents? No, right? What you're saying is, look, I want to take this inherently delicate relationship with you, this relationship that it could go either way, that where there is a real pull, desire, opportunity to do things that might destroy the relationship. And nevertheless, I want for both of us to make choices towards one another, even from that place of delicacy. And then tomorrow, again, when there's a real pull, opportunity, desire to go another way, in a way that might destroy our relationship, nevertheless, to strengthen ourselves over ourselves, to choose towards one another, towards that commitment, towards a relationship, and then do it again tomorrow, and then do it again next week, then do it again next month, then do it again next year, then do it again next decade. And then ultimately, we will go ahead and we will have taken this inherently delicate relationship and built it into a stable relationship. And that stability is real. That stability is yours. That stability is based on the sum total of the real choices you made, even when there is a real opportunity to go the other way. That kind of stability, that kind of relationship is on a totally different level of quality than that relationship, than the stability of the relationship with the parents, which was just quote unquote given to you. And you can't really be given a relationship, right? And so this is the idea when we say that principle number one of relationships is that the quality of a relationship depends on your ability to choose it. And choosing it means you have to have the real ability to destroy it. Only when you have the real ability to make a choice that will destroy your relationship with this person, only then when you go ahead and choose towards it, is that choice a real choice. You hear that idea? And so this principle applies to our relationship with the infinite as well, right? Only when we have the true capacity and opportunity to make a choice that will really bring down our relationship with the infinite, only then when we go ahead and choose towards that relationship with the infinite, is that choice a real choice. And so this is the idea of us building a spouse kind of relationship with the infinite. And you see that both of the, right, that's the thing, a lot of times people think about God or a relationship with God, people think that, right, and we hear it all the time, parents, God referred to as a father or a parent or whatever. But that's really more the fallback position, right? That's like, like they say, like famous line, forgive me, Father, if I've sinned. That's the fallback position. We talk about God as a parent only when we're talking about us messing up. That's not the goal. That's not the ideal. That's just if we messed up, okay, so God, be my parent in this moment. But that's not the ideal. That's not the goal. That's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is a true, high, refined, deep, choice-based relationship with the infinite, right? And we see both of these relationships right at the beginning of the Torah. We see the first story, right? What does Adam do to be created in the Garden of Eden? That is correct. Nothing. And yet, God puts him in paradise. You didn't even have to do anything for it. Why? Because that's God as a parent. God as a parent says, hey, man, you're my kid. I want you to have it all. Puts him in paradise. But God says, when it comes to the higher level of relationship with me, when it comes to the husband and wife, spouse-like relationship with me, that you have to choose it. This tree, not that tree. Right? And so this is the idea, principle number one of relationships for today is that everything in any relationship, the quality of relationship depends on your ability to choose it. And choosing it means you have to have the real ability to destroy it. That only when you have a real ability to walk away from the relationship, to really bring down the relationship, only then when you go ahead and choose it, is that choice a real choice. And this is that higher, opening the door to us having a higher, more refined, qualitative relationship with the real relationship with the infinite. All right, principle number two of relate. By the way, questions, thoughts, ideas, anybody on that? How are we doing? Cool. All right. Principle number two of relationships for today is that in any relationship, the level of the relationship always depends on the quote unquote lower of the two in the relationship. Let me say that one more time. In any relationship, the level the relationship is on always depends on the quote unquote lower of the two in the relationship. So for example, imagine you have a guy and a gal that meet, right? And guy walks up to gal and says, gal, you're amazing, you're incredible, I love you, let's get married. And gal turns back to guy and says, you know, guy, there's been something I've been meaning to tell you too. I can't stand you, you drive me crazy, I never want to see you again. So here you are, guy, 100%, totally in love. Gal, 0% wants nothing to do with guy. My friends, where is this relationship at? Guy's at 100, gal's at 0, right? 0, correct? Going nowhere fast, as a couple of you guys pointed out there on the visual, right? Because guy can love gal 100%, but it's not a loving relationship, because relationship means a two-way street. And therefore, a relationship is only as strong as the one who wants it least. So, the crazy thing is, though, if you take this principle and bring it over and apply it to our relationship with the infinite, we discover it a awe-inspiring yet empowering idea. And that is, if we understand God as the infinite being, and God puts us here with a brain to figure out that he, she, it exists, and the opportunity to constantly connect and build a relationship with the infinite, that means the infinite being is constantly giving us opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to have the relationship with him. The question then becomes, how much do we choose back to God? To the extent we choose back to God, that's the extent the relationship is going to be there. To the extent not, it simply won't be there. And so that's the thing. A lot of people like talk about heaven and hell and like these places. Can you hear the idea? There are those who say that heaven and hell, kind of the same place. It's just a revelation of reality and your place in it, given the choices, the potential that you had and the choices that you made. For some people, that's heaven. For other people, not as much. So that's the thing. A lot of people think about heaven as like some treasure chest at the end of a rainbow or a trophy at the end of a season. But much better comparison, if you're going to have to compare it to something, is 50th wedding anniversary party. Where if you imagine 50th wedding anniversary party, you have the couple there sitting at the head of the table, and you know they're sitting there, they look into each other's eyes, and it's like fireworks are going off in the background, like a Zoom background. Fireworks just going off in the background. But can you hear the idea that the love that each one feels for the other is going to be nothing more and nothing less than the experience of the sum total of the choices that each one made towards one another, minus the missed opportunities and the times they chose against one another, building a conceptual wall between the two of them. Nothing more, nothing less. And so, of course, it comes out that if we understand that we're here, that we want to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, and the most is to build that relationship with the infinite. And we know that the way the relationships work, the level of relationship depends on the lower of the two in the relationship, right? You got to recognize that in our relationship with the infinite, the lower of the two is me, right? And so the next question becomes, all right, if I want to build that relationship with the infinite, and I understand that the lower of the two is determining where that relationship is at, next question is, all right, so how do I raise the bar in this relationship? And so that's where the concept of Torah comes in. Now, what we mean by Torah in Judaism, of course, simple meaning, as many people have probably heard before, but the word from Torah is rooted in the Hebrew word hora'ah, or a more common word that is known, mora. Mora is teacher, right? So Torah is teachings. Teachings for what? Teachings for life. What's life all about? Well, everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. And what's the most available? To build and facilitate a relationship with the infinite. So therefore, the Torah is those teachings about how to build a relationship with the infinite. Now, the truth is, though, that every relationship you'll ever have in your life has a Torah, has a instruction book, has a idiot's guide to relationship with person X, right? And in there's two kind of quote unquote mitzvot, two kinds of commandments. There's the thou shalt and there's the thou shalt nots. Do this, it'll make the relationship better, but don't do that, it'll make the relationship worse. And some of these commandments, we understand why they work this way, right? They're called mishpatim in Hebrew, easy to understand commandments. And then there's other ones which you don't really understand why they work this way, right? Every relationship has it, right? For example, in my relationship with my wife, we have a Torah of our relationship. Thou shalt not. And sometimes I understand why it works this way, and then there's other times which I don't know. Maybe you guys can help me out. For example, in the Torah of my relationship with my wife, there is a commandment which states, "Thou shalt show up at home with flowers and chocolate and jewelry and a smile on your face, and it will be good for the relationship with the wife." Okay, I understand that. Got it. There's also a thou shalt not. That is pretty obvious, which states, "Thou shalt not come back yelling and screaming, bad for the relationship." Okay, cool. I got that. Understand. But then there's these other things based on who I am, based on who she is, which, again, any tips anyone can share to clarify will be helpful, right? There is a commandment in the Torah of my relationship with my wife, which states, "Thou shalt not squeeze the toothpaste from anywhere other than the end of the tube." It's the same amount of toothpaste in the thing. You use it at the end, use it at the beginning. It's up on this side, it's up on that side. It's all the same. I don't know. So, but I don't know. Here we are 18, 19 years later, however many it is. Don't tell her. I'm not quite sure. And I'll tell you what I figured out. I have figured out it will be better for me if I squeeze the toothpaste from the end of the tube. Research, my friends, research, analysis. So we see, what's the point of this ridiculous example is that even in our lifelong lovey-dovey human being in the physical, standing in front of my face, life partner, married to the person for 70 years, there are going to be certain things which, yes, I understand why it works that way. It makes total sense. There's other things which at first I don't understand, but by learning and by talking and by reading enough marriage books and by talking to my therapist, my rabbi, my rebbitz, and my coach, I might get some more insight. And then there's other things, based on who I am, based on who she is, I'm never gonna know. I'm never gonna understand it. And that's with my lovey-dovey life partner being married to the person 70 years here in the flesh, speaking to them back and forth. So all the more so, how much does this apply to our relationship with the infinite? It's already like this in our relationship with the finite. So how much more does this also going to apply, certainly, to our relationship with the infinite as well? But the point is, don't be surprised when it does. And that's part of relationships, because of course, if you only understand, if you'll only do something, if you'll only take action when it fits into your little box of how you understand things, so then are you having a relationship with the other person? You have a relationship with yourself. Every relationship with another human being entails you going outside of your box, going outside of your comfort zone. If not, you're not doing anything for the relationship, right? And so similarly, same thing in our relationship with the infinite, all of this stuff applies, right? And this is really where Judaism really begins, is about building a relationship, a real relationship, a choice-based relationship, a conscious relationship with the infinite, and by learning and enacting in our lives what that means, right? Learning about the concepts of Torah, the concept of mitzvot, and having, of course, constant communication as well, which of course is part of it, right? But when we understand that there is an infinite being and we're looking to relate with that infinite being, so infinite means beyond the limitations of time and space. The infinite being is right here all the time. A lot of people think like a holy person means that someone is like the guy's all the way up in the clouds, somebody's in outer space communicating with God. I mean, maybe that's one side of it, but another side of it means like, no, you're constantly conscious that no, Hashem is right here. God is right here with me, right here, wherever I am. And to be living with that reality in the nitty-gritty of our lives. The more we're involved with that, the more we're involved with the infinite in a real way, in an intimate way. This is the idea, my friends. I think this is the beginning of the conversation of building a meaningful Judaism in our lives. And God willing, we'll talk more in the future. We'll pick it up with this conversation and other topics of Judaism, Jewish philosophy, Kabbalah, Chassidut. God willing, in the coming weeks. Hope this is meaningful. Hope this is helpful. My friends, have yourselves a wonderful evening and day.